So this one is going to be a little bit of a tearjerker, but this is 5 life lessons that I've learned from Miss GH. And if you're new here, my name is Death Doula Beth, and I talk about all things death, dying, and grief on this channel. So grab your tissues, sit down, and here's the story. In this video, I'm going to share our backstory, the 5 lessons that I've learned from her, and what I'm going to be taking into my life and practice because of knowing her. All right, so the backstory. Back when I was doing my death doula certification, part of the process was to sit with a person who's dying as bedside hours because that's part of the requirement. When I decided to join the hospice center that I volunteer with, I would sit with the patients. Sometimes they are here for a month, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a lot shorter. And that's usually the case. People usually are only on hospice for a couple weeks, maybe even a week, because we get them right at the time of the end. Sidebar, it's never too early to call hospice. I know it's a big term, but hospice is there to be, such a help. So that's not this video, but I wanted to just kind of put that disclaimer there. Anyway, going back to the story. So I volunteered at this hospice center and I had already gotten my certification, but I loved volunteering. I love these people. I fall madly in love with these people that I sit with. And I always take something from them. So this particular day, I was doing a meet and greet with the new patient, and I go in there and I go, "Hi, Mrs. GH. My name's Beth, and I'm going to be your volunteer." And she was just such a sweet, sweet lady. I could just tell she was strong, but she was just so kind and so loving. And oh, I might tear up more than once. Okay. I can't promise that that won't happen again. So thank you. So I met Miss GH. She was there visiting with the nurse. Well, the nurse was visiting her because the nurses come to the home, but she was there on the edge of her bed and, they were doing some things with her foot because she had a cut on her foot. And we just kind of sat there and I held her hand and she was just so kind and gentle and sweet. And so I went back every single Tuesday morning and I visited her for over a year. Miss GH was my favorite so far to visit because each week I would go and help her clean something or just sit and talk with her. But most of the time it was like cleaning and organizing because she wasn't able to get around as much as she used to. And she really valued having a clean home and having an organized home. And her daughter and her grandkids were living with her at the time. So, as you can imagine, with kids and other people, the house can really, get out of control real fast. But she kept a really clean home and she was very, very, um, like she had worked so hard for this home. And she worked so hard to get everything organized and together. And I helped organize the cabinets and I was like, I don't even know if I'm doing anything with it because like it was just I would just try to do as best as I could, but I would help her with practical things like, organizing her drawers or cleaning off the top of, dusting things or, I would just help her with cleaning stuff. And through those moments of helping her with these household chores, we would start talking. I would listen to her tell me about her childhood and the way that she grew up and what she liked to eat. And, I got to know her. I got to know her family. I got to know her daughter who worked from home. I got to know her grandkids. And there was even a moment in time where she was taken off hospice because there's times where people are taken off hospice. People are doing well and they're like, okay, well, you don't need us anymore. And, so she was taken off hospice. And then when she came back on, it was maybe a week later. It wasn't that much time at all. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. This woman had had multiple near-death experiences. She had gone and come back multiple times. And this, I could tell, really shook her. And it was really hard. And I sat there with her. We talked about it. And sometimes just sitting there is the most that we can do. And we just kind of sat there and just let it sink in that it sucked. So as time went on, the hospice center that I volunteered for offered these packets of books called My Life Story. And I said, "Hey, Miss, let's do this. Let's do this whole story and like we'll tell your story." So we spent a lot of time filling out this book, and I fully intend to make it written like a book so that her story can continue to be told because wow, she has an amazing story. And she told me things that she hasn't told anyone. And that's the beauty of sitting bedside, being a hospice volunteer, being a death doula. We hear stories that people don't tell anyone else because we're this neutral party. And I will cherish and I will keep her secrets until my dying day. So as time goes on, like like always when it comes to hospice, she got more tired. And I could tell that she was in more pain as time went on. Like the cancer was starting to spread. And she didn't want anyone to see her in pain. She didn't want anyone to know that she was hurting. But when she did, she really was hurting. She was so strong. So a few weeks ago, she started to get really, really tired and was sleeping a lot more, wasn't feeling well. There was even a period of time where I was sick and she was sick, and there was a couple weeks where we didn't see each other. And then, I would call, every so often, like throughout the week and say, like, hey, I miss you. I hope you're okay. I would tell her that I loved her. She would tell me that she loved me. Um, Her daughter would even say that. I felt like I was part of her family. And she was definitely a part of my family. So I will tell you, as a death doula, the call never gets easier when we hear imminent death. My heart sank and my tears just started welling up. And I even had a thought like, oh, Miss G, you are going to pull through and you're going to shock us all again. And as soon as I went to the house and I saw her, I knew that it was her time. The beautiful thing is, when I went to her house was filled with the people that she told me stories about. The cousins, the sisters, the daughters, the sons, the nieces, the nephews. There were so many people there. And in between me saying, hi, it's so good to meet you. I'm so sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. I could just feel the love that they had for Miss G. And every day I went back. Every day we sat alongside her. And just in true fashion, because I knew Miss G would have a fit if she knew that there were water bottles all over the place and there was stuff all over. So I tried to tidy up as best as I could without getting in the way because I knew that that was something that she would like. And another thing that she really enjoyed doing or listening to were prayers on the TV. So I kept advocating for that. Like, Miss G really loves her prayers. Can we put that on for her? The day before Miss G died, I went to their house twice. I knew that our time was running short with her, but I knew that she was peaceful and she was taken care of and loved. And when I got the call the next morning that she had died, my heart broke. I don't think this part gets any easier. I just think it gets different. And with every hospice patient and every patient or client that I've had, it just gets different every time. I share Miss G with you because she meant a lot to me. She died on Wednesday, March 26th at 8 o'clock-ish in the morning, and she was surrounded by love and peace. So that's the condensed version of Miss G and how we met and how our story unfolded. Uh, there's a lot that we learned from each other in a year's time, and I loved her just like she was family. And I'm sad to see her go, but she meant a lot to me and she taught me a lot. And I want to share with you now the 5 things that Miss G has taught me about life. So the first thing is to keep showing up. There was not a time that I went there and Miss G was not in her skirt and her nice shirt and her head wrap. That woman had so much flair and style. I just loved her outfits all the time. She always showed up. She always got dressed. She always brushed her teeth. She took care of herself. Her bed was always made so neatly. I don't know how she made it so neatly every day, but it was so neatly done. And no matter what or how she felt, she still showed up. Even in those days where she was in pain, even in those days where I could tell her energy was low, she would still show up. Her room was meticulously cleaned, like all the time. Number 2 was to be polite no matter what. Miss G had this unique way of saying thank you with everything. And it was just such a kind thing, like everything. Like I would tell her I loved you, and she would be like, "Oh, thank you." And it was just such a sweet gesture. She was so kind to everyone and anyone that she met. And while I didn't see her out in public, I could imagine that she would probably be the nicest person to the wait staff or the nicest person to like the janitor because that's just who she was. She didn't think that she was better than anyone. She didn't think she was less than anyone. She always was kind and polite. And number 3, which piggybacks on that, is that she always saw the good in people. So another story that I'm going to share here is that towards the end, she had had a contractor come in to fix her closet door and like to do something up in the loft that she had. And he came in for the day. She had met him like in line at a store and she was polite and nice. And then she realized that he has a contractor business and she was like, "Oh, I need this work done." So she was like, "Here, come here. And, I need this work done." And she paid him and, he did the work and he ended up leaving and he had gotten sick, so there was a time period where he wasn't able to answer the phone and like get in contact. But during that visit was the same time as she had lost her wallet and there was money in there. And so at first her thought process was, and all of our thought processes were, well, her and I was like, "Oh, do you think he stole it? I hope he didn't steal it." And she'd be like, you know, "No, it's gonna come up." And then I was like, "Okay, it's gonna pop up, maybe one of the kids got it or something." And a week or so later, don't you know that that wallet pulled up, like was brought up because one of the little guy, the little grandson had taken it. But I say that all to say that even though she had that inkling, she did approach him, which I'll go into with the next point, but she did approach him and he was like, "No, I didn't do that. I'm a family man. I wouldn't have done that." She still saw the good in him. So number four, number four that she taught me was we're much stronger than we give ourselves credit and to take no shit. Yes, Miss G was very, very kind. Yes, she was very, very polite and she saw the best in people. But boy, she just commanded respect. She was just honest and upfront and would approach and would just say things that was like, "Oh, I need to be honest with this person." Like, yeah, like I have to. Those types of people, right? So it's not even just like she had a strong presence. She was physically strong. There was a time in Thanksgiving where she made me a plate and there was turkey and stuffing and dressing, like all the fixins on this plate. I was so happy. And she was like, "Do you want cranberry sauce? The cranberry sauce in the can?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." She was like, "Here, open it." And you take off the top and then she was like, "Flip it over and put the knife in the bottom so it comes out." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm here with the knife and I'm trying to bop it into the top of the can and it won't go through. And I'm like, I don't know. So she takes her little hand and she's like, "Bop once, once." When I tell you once, once. Went right through. And I was like, "Miss G, you are so strong." And she just did her little giggle and said thank you. And, just went about her day and was doing her thing. And it was just so funny. And and cute and also like, whoa. So not only physically strong, but emotionally strong. She was so resilient. She had gone through so much. She had gone through so much and she still came up. She told me all these things that she went through and she still stood up. She went through so much in her lifetime and she still got up. Things that would bring us down and help, like there's certain people that you look at and you're like, how in the world can you still be so kind after all the stuff that you've been through? That is her. And the fact that she can still be so kind and so gentle and so wonderfully, like just so wonderful. I was like, wow, that is something. And I think it had to do with her spirituality. She was a very religious person. She would read her Bible all the time. She listened to the prayers all the time to calm her nerves and to calm her spirit. And I think faith really does play a big role in her ability to get to a place of accepting and a place of peace. So the fifth life lesson that Miss G gave me is to do the things even if they're uncomfortable. Miss G was in pain a lot of the days. She didn't show it. She still got up. She still got her dress on. She still showed up. She still cleaned up. She still went downstairs, made her tea. She still did all the things that she needed to do. She did the hard things in the face of hard things. So, in reflecting the time that we spent together and what I've learned from her, I do know this for fact that she had a hard life, but she had a beautiful death. It was a death that I wish upon everybody, surrounded by loved ones, filled 24/7, never alone. She looked comfortable. She looked safe, but I know that I'm going to miss her a lot. But she will live on in my heart forever. So thanks for coming on that journey with me. I am doing 30 videos in 30 days to challenge myself to get more comfortable with doing this type of content. So follow along if this is something that you're interested in. If you want to get more deep in the conversation, I do have a free school community. The link is where you find the links. And if you want to become a death doula as well, let's talk. I'll see you in the next one, okay?